Have you ever found yourself in the grocery aisle, maybe looking at the milk or cheese and thinking, hold on, didn't this cost less just a few weeks ago? Or maybe even last year?
Oh, definitely.
Those subtle shifts in price for our everyday things, a carton of milk, a block of cheddar, they really do add up. They can make a difference to our daily budgets.
A big difference sometimes.
Well, today we're going to put on our detective hats, so to speak, and try to uncover the hidden stories behind those shifting prices.
Sounds good.
We're doing a deep dive into a really fascinating report. It's called Monitoring Dairy Retail Prices. This analysis was put together by Jade Smith, who is an economist at the MPO, that's the Milk Producers Organization. And it uses comprehensive data from BMI, which is a leading market insights firm.
Right, and that data comes via Agri-Inspec, who specialize in agricultural data, so it's solid stuff.
Exactly,
Yeah.
a really solid foundation for us. So what we're going to do is unpack the price changes for 3 key dairy staples: fresh milk, long life milk, and cheddar cheese.
The big three.
Yeah, looking specifically at the first 5 months of 2023, 2024, and then 2025. And just a note for listeners, we'll be talking about prices in rands.
And, this isn't just about listing numbers. Understanding these specific price movements for, such staple products, it gives you a fantastic window into broader things.
Like what, for example?
Well, broader economic indicators, definitely. Market competition, consumer trends. It really empowers you, the listener, to be a more informed shopper.
Yeah.
And honestly, I think you'll be surprised by some of the aha moments that pop out when we look at this kind of detailed data over time.
I completely agree. So our journey today, it's going to take us through the data product by product. We'll start with fresh milk, then long life, and finish with cheddar cheese.
Okay.
And within each category, we'll look at specific brands, pinpoint the most interesting and, frankly, sometimes surprising price shifts, comparing them across the months and the years.
Find out who's up, who's down.
Exactly. Who's winning, who's losing, and what that really means for your grocery bill. So let's kick off with fresh milk, because this is where we see some really, dramatic shifts. Take Clover 2L fresh milk. The data shows a pretty significant drop, about R3.0 in May 2025 compared to May 2024.
Wow, R3.00 is a big cut for milk.
It really is for an everyday item like that. But here's where it gets really interesting.
Go on.
That big drop is in stark contrast to the year before. In May 2024, Clover actually cost about R2.25 more than it did in May 2023.
So a real up and down situation, like a pricing roller coaster for Clover.
Exactly. A roller coaster. What are we seeing there?
Well, it absolutely looks like a roller coaster. What's fascinating, though, is that Clover's average price for those first 5 months of 2025, it actually ended up roughly back where it was in 2023.
After dropping in 2024.
Well, after experiencing a decline over that same period in 2024 compared to 23, then bouncing back up somewhat overall into early 25, but then having that specific May 25 drop we mentioned, it's complex.
Okay, so it's quite volatile.
Very. And that kind of volatility in a major brand, it's often a sign, of intense competition. Or maybe it's a direct response to changes in their costs, or even perhaps an aggressive move to gain market share.
They're definitely being dynamic with their pricing.
No doubt about it.
So if Clover is swinging like that, who's at the other end of the scale? More stable, perhaps?
Well, on the other hand, you have Douglasdale 2L fresh milk. It stood out pretty consistently as the highest priced brand. That was true in both April and May 2025.
Okay, the premium choice.
Seems like it. Its price in May 2025 was actually around 4.5% higher than the same month in both 2023 and 2024.
So while Clover is bouncing around, Douglasdale is just steadily climbing.
Appears so. Consistently upward, maintaining that premium position in the market.
Interesting. And then there's the third one mentioned in the report, the department's own brand, or DOB, for fresh milk. Before we get into its numbers, what exactly is the department's own brand here? Is that like a government thing?
That's a great question, and yeah, important for listeners. When the report says department's own brand, it generally means a supermarket's own private label, the house brand.
Okay. The store brand, often the budget option.
Exactly. And what's interesting here is that this DOB was the only brand among those three, Clover, Douglasdale, and DOB, that recorded an average price below R35.0000 for a 2L carton during the first 5 months of 2025.
Consistently under R35.
Yes. And in May 2025 specifically, it was notably the cheapest. Came in around R34.68.
Which was quite a bit less than the others.
Oh, yeah. Significantly less than Clover at R35.2 and almost, R1.64 less than Douglasdale's premium R36.32 price in that month.
So the supermarket's own brand is really undercutting the big names there.
It certainly is, and that DOB price in May 2025 was actually down compared to previous years, about 2% lower than May 2023 and 7% lower than May 2024.
Wow, cheaper year on year.
Mm-hmm. This consistent affordability, it does make you wonder, doesn't it? Are they operating with a leaner supply chain, a different cost structure maybe, that lets them consistently undercut the established players?
Yeah, that's a really crucial insight if you're looking for value.
Definitely.
Okay, so from those dramatic swings in fresh milk, let's pivot. Let's look at long life milk, often seen as the more stable option, right?
Generally, yes.
Do we find similar patterns here, or is it a completely different story?
Definitely different dynamics. Take Crystal Valley 1L long life milk. It consistently stayed below R20.00.
Okay, so the most affordable option.
Pretty much throughout the period, yeah. Made it the most affordable choice. But interestingly, its highest prices were actually in the first 3 months of 2025, averaging around R18.00 then.
So even the budget-friendly one saw a bit of an upward nudge recently.
A little bit, yeah. Still under R20, but creeping up slightly early in 2025.
So who's at the top end then in the long life market?
Well, in stark contrast, you had Parmalat 1L long life. It was consistently the most expensive brand during those first 5 months of 2025. Always above R21.0000 in that period. Actually, March 2023 was the last month it sold for under R20.00.
Wow. So that really highlights its position, doesn't it, at the higher end of the market?
Absolutely. Suggests a strong brand premium maybe, or perhaps a different target consumer who's willing to pay that bit extra.
And what about Clover? We saw so much volatility with their fresh milk. How did they fare in the long life category?
Stable. Volatile.
Interestingly, much more stable here. Clover 1L long life milk actually showed the smallest price variation.
Really?
Yeah, only 46 cents difference between its highest and lowest price from January to May 2025.
Huh. That suggests a very different pricing approach compared to their fresh milk.
It really does. It's almost like they have, separate strategies for different product lines, which is fascinating in itself.
Definitely. Okay, from milk, let's pivot again. Let's talk about something a bit more complex in its pricing. Cheddar cheese.
Ah, yes. Cheese. This is where, as you hinted, we see some truly divergent paths for different brands. It feels like a microcosm of the whole dairy market sometimes. What's the first big thing that jumps out here?
Indeed. Well, one thing we noted was a really interesting downward trend for Lancewood cheddar, price per kilogram.
Downward. That's good news for shoppers.
It is. It saw a significant drop, actually, over R17.00 downwards. It went from around R169.37 in April 2024 to R152.11 in May 2025.
That's a big move down.
A substantial decrease. And just between January and May 2025 alone, it dropped a solid 9%. So for consumers, yeah, that's a real win.
That is a great win. But how does that compare to, say, Parmalat? We just saw them consistently priced high in long life milk. Same story with cheese.
It's a very sharp contrast. Parmalat cheddar consistently remained the most expensive cheese brand. No surprise there, perhaps.
Okay.
But its price in May 2025 actually increased. It was up by a notable 16% compared to May 2023.
16%.
Yeah. And 5% up compared to just May 2024. So while Lancewood is cutting prices...
Parmalat's going the other way.
Exactly. Mm-hmm. Parmalat seems to be maintaining, maybe even strengthening, that premium position, consistently commanding higher prices, even as other brands see reductions.
It really highlights how different brands approach their market positioning, doesn't it?
Absolutely.
But then, wait, Clover cheddar per kilogram. The report says it stands out as the most affordable brand during the first 5 months of 2025.
That's right.
So in May 2025, it was significantly cheaper than the others.
Very much so. It was cheaper than Lancewood by over R14.00.
Wow.
Cheaper than Parmalat by a massive R31.0000.
Over R30 difference.
Yep. And cheaper than the other one, Elite Cheddar, by over R22.00.
So that's a really noticeable difference for your wallet. Clover Cheddar is the clear budget champion in this group.
Seems to be, based on this data.
Yeah.
And speaking of Elite Cheddar, we saw its prices stabilize a bit.
Stabilize? How so?
Well, from February to May 2025, its price didn't fluctuate much, unlike in previous years where it seemed to jump around more.
Okay, so less volatility recently.
Yes. However, and this is a big however, despite this recent stability, it recorded a large year-on-year increase.
Ah, So stable, but stable at a higher price.
Precisely. It was up 26% compared to May 2023.
26.
And 17% up compared to May 2024. So stabilization doesn't always mean prices are coming back down. It can just mean consistently high prices.
That's a fantastic point, stabilization at a new, higher normal. It's almost like the market is saying, okay, this is the new floor price.
To be?
For consumers, that means maybe the roller coaster ride is over, but the higher cost is here to stay. That's something really crucial to note when you're doing your grocery list.
Absolutely.
It really does hammer home the value of diving into these specific numbers, doesn't it? They uncover the real story behind the everyday prices we just see on the shelves.
Couldn't agree more.
So let's maybe bring this deep dive towards a close by pulling together the most striking takeaways. What really stood out?
Okay.
For fresh milk, I mean, we clearly saw Douglasdale holding that premium price leadership, consistently the highest.
And the department's own brand, the DOB, consistently offering the best affordability, the value option.
Right. And Clover's pricing? Well, that proved to be a real wild card, didn't it? With that dramatic R3.00 drop in May 2025 showing just how responsive or maybe volatile they can be year to year.
Definitely volatile. Then with long life milk, we saw that stark contrast. Crystal Valley, consistently the most affordable, always staying under R20.000.
Another shit king there.
Yeah. And Parmalat at the other extreme, the most expensive, consistently above R21.00000.
And Clover, surprisingly, having the smallest price variation in long life in 2025.
Indicating that different kind of market stability for that specific product line. Very interesting.
And finally, for cheddar cheese, well, Clover cheddar clearly stood out as the most affordable compared to all the others. A true budget-friendly choice there.
Absolutely. While Parmalat cheddar consistently held the high price ground, showing the significant year-on-year increases. A strong premium strategy evident there.
And we saw Lancewood's distinct, and for consumers, very welcome downward trend since April 2024.
Great for shoppers, that one.
Yeah. And Elite Cheddar's journey from fluctuation to stabilization. But, as we noted, that stabilization came with substantial year-on-year price increases, settling at that new, higher normal.
Exactly. And what's, I think, really fascinating here is how these specific price points, these percentages, they aren't just abstract numbers in a report.
No, they feel very real when you're at the checkout.
Precisely. They're reflections of, well, complex market forces, consumer demand, the competitive strategies playing out every day within the dairy industry. And understanding these nuances, even just a little bit, it really empowers you, the listener, to be a more critical, more informed consumer. Spotting trends, maybe making smarter decisions about your purchases right there in the grocery aisle.
Knowing where the value might lie or where you're paying a premium.
Exactly.
So perhaps a final thought for our listeners to chew on.
Okay, well, here's some of the mull over beyond this deep dive. Given how, well, fascinating and varied the price movements were for just these three staple dairy products.
Yeah.
What other everyday consumer goods or categories do you think would reveal similarly surprising, maybe insightful patterns if you were to take a closer look at their retail prices over time? Coffee, bread, cleaning supplies.
That is a great question to ponder. What else is having its own price roller coaster or steady climb? Food for thought indeed. Well, thank you for joining us on this deep dive into dairy prices. We really hope it helps you navigate those grocery aisles with maybe a bit more insight next time.
Hope so too.
Until next time, keep exploring what makes our world tick, one surprising fact at a time.